Well, hi again, this is Bob, and we're getting ready to take a look at the last lesson in chapter 2, and I'm going to just discuss the idea of stem and leaf plots. The other information I suggest that you read through it, but it's not something that we're going to be having homework problems based on. They're interesting things, but I think many of us have seen how to do a pie graph or some of these other charts along the line. And if you're interested, you can read through and maybe practice a little bit. That it's really not our main objective. But learning about stem and leaf plots are. And I'm over on page 84, and they tell us right at the top of the page there that a stem and leaf plot is a data plot that uses part of the data value as the stem and part of the data value as the leaf to form groups or classes. And for example, if they use the number like 34, and notice that the 3 there is in the tens place and the 4 is in the ones place. So we should write stem and leaf here. So we could break this down. Now you may say for one number that doesn't really get us anywhere, and I would agree with you. But if we had several numbers, 50 or 60 numbers, we would get tired real quick out of, first of all, they recommend organizing the numbers from smallest to largest, but we would get fatigued real quick writing the whole number out, especially if it was more than 2 digits. But anyway, the leading digit, in this case the 3, which we know is in the tens place, is our stem, and in this case the 1 place, our leaf would be 4. So let's say we have like the numbers 34, and then there were a data set that had a couple of 35s in it. Well, what we would do is we would write the 34 like this, and then this is the first 35, and this is the second 35. In other words, we only write the leading digit, the place value, in this case a 3 for 30, and then the leaf would be all in the ones place. Now, what I thought I'd do is I'm drawing your attention to example 214, because as I said before, this is a really straightforward topic, but it's one that is important for when we have lots of data values. And I won't do anything more than just refer you to where they first of all gave us the 20 data values, and each one of those data values represents the number of cardiograms performed at a testing center on a daily basis, and we had 20 days are shown there. And if you notice, the first thing they did as step 1 is they started, and this is what will be helpful for everything that we do in this class, always order the data. This is especially important when we get into chapter 3 and on out. Ordering the data helps us, or is going to help us, find all sorts of relationships, and there's all sorts of values within the data that we're going to be able to find once we've got it from smallest to largest. You know, you could arrange data from largest to smallest, but I think most books would tell us that smallest to largest is preferable. Anyway, I'm not going to do all 20, but note I'll do a few. It starts off at 02. We're basically just 2. I'm on step 1 now, and then it goes like 13, 14, 20, 23, and it goes all the way up to that 20th value, which was 57. Okay, well, once we have those values ordered, and you'll have a homework problem or two where you're going to do this, then the next thing we do is they tell us to separate the data in according to the first digits as shown. In other words, we're going to take those and put them in classes. And you might actually be able to skip this step. I mean, once we have the data range from smallest to largest, then what we can do is we can set out our stem, which of course will be the values in the tens place, and then our trailing digit in the ones place, the leaf. Now, recall our first value was 0. In other words, anything between 0 and 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 would lead off with a stem of 0. Okay, so our first value was 2, so we only have a 2 there. And this would be like 0 times 10 or 0, and then 2 times 1 or 2. So that's how we write 2. Now, the next one would be our teen values. In other words, from 10 to 19. So notice that we had a 13 and a 14, and what we do is we just go 3 and 4. So this would mean 13, and then we come back with the stem and put it up with a leaf 4 for 14. Now again, it's not going to save us that much time, and it wouldn't take much longer to write 13 and 14 individually, but just keep in mind if we were dealing like maybe with 50 or 100 values that we had to organize and put into some kind of table, and using a stem and leaf would make this much easier. And remember, these are only 2-digit numbers. We could have 3 digits or 4-digit numbers, which a shortcut method like this would be even more favorable. Well, how about when we start from the values in the 20s, from like 20 to 29? Well, we did have a 20, and we had a 23 and a 25. Okay, so there. First, the leading digit, the 2, this is 20, 23, and 25. Just so you know, some books throw a comma after the individual data values on the leaf part, but that's optional. Okay, how about the 30s then? We had a 31, and then we had 4 32s. And I'm looking at the data arranged in order there. Then we had a 33 and a 36. And for the 40s, we had a 43, 44, 2 44s and a 45. Okay, and for the last group there, the 50s, 51, 52, and 57. So 51, 2, and 7. Okay, well, one could argue that with 20 data entries, it's not that much more time-consuming or time-saving to do the stem and leaf plot. But again, this is just a small data set for an example. What's really important is that we understand the concept. So we'll look at a couple of other examples, and that should do the job for us. By the way, let's just, let's say that we had some values like 521, 523, 526, 526, 529. And again, I'm using a very small data set just to make a point. Well, in this case, what we could do, and I listed those in order so we can line them up, is our stem would be 5-2. So we would show 521 like this, and 523 thusly, and then 2 526s, and the 529 this way. Okay, so if we, again, had a huge data set, this could be really helpful. Now, the next thing that they did is they showed us another way to deal with this data set, and I'm only going to discuss a little bit of this. Okay, I'm now looking at example 215, and referring to the data set there, these company conducted research on the number of car thefts in a large city for 30 days last summer, and they show us the raw data, and they wanted to do a plot by using the classes 50 to 54, 55 to 59, etc. Okay, well, you can see the raw data there. So in this case, we have more data, and they're just going to show us a different way that we can break it down. So I'm not going to do all of this, but I will take and write the 50s, and I think you'll quickly be able to get the idea for the remaining entries. So we had 50, 51, another 51, 253s, and a 257s, a 58 and a 59. Well, the point they're trying to show us here is that if we were just doing this with a single stem and leaf with and we had our 5 here, it may turn out that they have so many data values in the 50s that we might run off the page. So what they've decided to do here, and I'm just going to do the first part of it, is for the stem, they're going to break it down between like 50 to 54. In other words, the first one will be 5, and the first stem will be 5, but it's representing 50 to 54. We're going to put all values of 50 to 54 in the top column there, and then the values that fall in from 55 to 59 will go beneath them. Okay, so we normally break things. This kind of goes along with rounding 5 or more. So anyway, we've got from 50 to 54, and that represents the same number of data values as 55 to 59. So I will grab a new page here, and we'll just do that first part, and I'll leave the rest for you there. Okay, so remember they were lined up. So we had 50 and then 2 51s, 52, 2 53s, 255, no, we have to stop right there for the top. Okay, so a 50, a 51, 2 51s, a 52, and 2 53s. Okay, well then they start going at 55, and there were 2 55s. There they both are. And then we had a 56, and then we had 2 57s, and then we had a 58 and a 59. Okay, so if you had lots of data of this nature, you could certainly break it down. In this case, they've broken down the 50s between 50 and 54, and put the leaves that correspond to that group, and then the second beneath there is 55 to 59. Okay, we've really covered this topic, but there is one other thing that we can do, and I'm just going to refer you to the example here, because there's not much new here. But just wanted to look or mention example 216, which is over on page 86. Here we're going to compare the number of stories in tall buildings between 2 different cities. Okay, so we've got like Atlanta, and then on the other side here we have Philadelphia. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to have like side-by-side comparisons. And notice for us the stories of buildings usually start in the 20 stories, and they are going to end up in this case in the 70s, but we could adjust our stems as necessary. So again, this will be our stem here, and then the leaves will go with each city. But again, I draw your attention to where we would have to arrange the data first in order for us to get down to figure 219, to do the side-by-side or back-to-back stem and leaf plot. So what I'm going to do is just that first one there. For 20 stories, in Philadelphia, they had one building of 25 stories at the time of this survey. But in Atlanta, they had one that was 26, and they had one that was 28, and they had one that was 29. So we could see that Atlanta had a couple more buildings with 20 or more stories. So there's a lot of ways that we could interpret the data here. Anyway, this is a helpful skill, and there's really not much to add to it. I'll give you a couple of questions like this on the homework, and I'll be back shortly with some information and some notes on where our really, I'd say, official beginning of the new material will be in our class, which is Chapter 3. And from Chapter 3 onwards, now that we have a good introductory foundation to build on, we'll be looking at some increasingly important topics toward the individual goals of our class. So I'll be back shortly with that. Thank you.